Failed television pilots have always interested me. They're stories of what could have been, and it's fun to speculate what they would have been like had they been picked up. Today, I will be talking about one of these pilots, which is Welcome to Eltingville by Evan Dorkin. This is actually based on his own comic, centering on the adventures of four pop culture obsessed boys: Bill, who is also the leader of the club, Josh, Pete, and Jerry, who all live in Eltingville, Staten Island, as the title suggests. It's actually one of my favorite comics of all time. The first story, Bring Me the Head of Boba Fett, was originally published in 1994, and in 2002 was adapted into a pilot for Adult Swim. While popular, the network inexplicably didn't pick up the show. I want to not only review the pilot, but see how it compares to its comic counterpart. Now, this means I won't be pointing out every changed line of dialogue, but rather just scenes that either weren't in the original comic or scenes that were changed, as I don't think this video needs to be as long as I can make it be. But before I do that, let's start with its production history. Evan Dorkin and his wife, Sarah Dyer, who colored much of the comics, were writers for Space Ghost Coast to Coast on Cartoon Network. In 1999, they were asked if they were interested in adapting the Eltingville Club into a half-hour series for the then-announced Adult Swim. They immediately accepted, and soon Evan wrote the script, while they both wrote the series' pitch bible. Evan designed the characters, backgrounds, and props, and Sarah was once again the color stylist. The pilot was storyboarded by their friend Steven DeStefano, who by then had a prolific career in the animation and comics industries. As for the director, that would be Chuck Sheets, who directed many episodes of The Simpsons between Season 8 and Season 26. The voice cast included Jason Harris, Troy Metcalf, Lark Spies, and Corey Brill as our four main characters, with direction by Sarah herself. And damn were they good, because once you read the comics after watching the pilot, you'll never be able to unhear them. The opening and closing themes were performed by none other than the Aquabats, who were one of Evan and Sarah's favorite bands, with Dennis M. Hannigan composing the music itself. Finally, animation was handled by Tama Production in Tokyo, who have worked on many anime and cartoons. One major difference in the art direction is the lack of intentionally disgusting close-up shots, which was due to the pilot having to be toned down from its source material. The pilot was completed in 2001 and aired on March 3rd, 2002. Now that I've sped through all of that, let's get into the main topic of this video. The comic starts on a Friday night in Bill's basement, in which the club members go over their meeting from last week, and start one of the series' many trademarks, that being referencing as much pop culture as humanly possible. The pilot starts out differently. The boys are playing Dungeons and Dragons, and get into an argument when Bill loses the game due to Josh. Right away, I'm going to say that I prefer the pilot's opening, as it not only gives us something that wasn't in the original story, but it's also quite funny how it initially appears there in the game itself. Bill's mother then yells at her son to keep the noise down as she's trying to sleep, which starts another fight between Bill and Josh when they blame each other for it. Cut to the intro, and boy do I want to talk about how great it is. It perfectly encapsulates a comic book-like feel that reflects the show's premise, with its superhero-esque music that's really catchy, and the sound effects and speech bubbles used when the club is in their local comic book store. Other than that, it explains to us who our main characters are by having them shove the other customers in said comic book store and take everything they want. The end of the intro also shows us their turbulent friendship, as they all get into a fight when Josh accidentally sprays paint onto Bill. Back to the pilot, the club finally starts their meeting. Josh then reveals he has a VHS containing tons of fan service, and the boys eagerly go to watch it. That is, until they discover it's actually a VHS of the Hair Bear Bunch, or Lidsville in the comic. Josh starts yet another fight when his friends laugh at him, which forces Bill to make them leave his house when his mother hears them. Now we come to the second part of the story that differs in the pilot. Before the main plot starts in the comic, the other three boys are struggling to jack off at home. In the pilot, Bill has a nightmare about Josh after he ends their friendship, so decides to let him back in the club. Like the beginning, I think this is another area where the pilot is superior to the comic. Sure, the idea of having Bill being Captain Kirk in his dreams is really funny, but it also effectively manages to set up his dynamic with Josh. While we've already seen them getting into arguments, this is where Bill goes as far as cutting ties with him, at least briefly. With that said, however, I do think the scene from the comic that was cut was also funny. The next morning, the four have missed out on watching the new Star Trek movie due to sold-out tickets. In this case, what the pilot does better is that it depicts the boys as more obsessive, ironically enough, as not only do they try to sneak into 2 movies, but the movies in question are rip-offs of Alien and Halloween. After they are kicked out, the main 4 engage in various activities, and this is one of the few times we ever see them get along. Now, one of the main aspects of the comics is the group constantly arguing with each other, and how that affects their relationship. It seems that the pilot had to tone that down, along with the unbelievable amount of swearing, and while I can understand this to an extent, I wouldn't want it to ruin the whole point of what I said. Anyway, after all of that, in the comic, the group are deciding on what they're going to do next, so Bill tricks them into going to the comic book store, where in the pilot, they run into Ward Willoughby, an annoying boy that they don't like who wants to be friends with them, and Ironjaw, another boy the club hates for his spit-talking. Bill and Josh find a Kenner 12-inch Boba Fett, so they compete in a trivia off against one another. I'm sure this is a scene many are familiar with, and for good reason. It's just such a joy to watch them ask questions about stuff that, for the most part, only die-hard nerds like them would know, as well as how intense the competition itself is. Ultimately, however, Bill ends up winning, but before I cover the end of the story, I want to talk about the questions that made Josh lose, because they are so clever, and prove this was written by someone who knows fandom. In the comic, Bill asks Josh the American title for Gojira Ebira Mosura, Nankai no Daiketo. Josh's answer is Ebira, Horror of the Deep, but the answer was supposed to be Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. I believe this is a reference to the fact the movie was going to be about King Kong. In the pilot, the question is who says Beady Beady Biddy, and Josh's answer is Jerry, which is technically true, but in reality it's Twiki from Buck Rogers in the 25th century, where the catchphrase originates from. Also, I like how either of these answers could be right in real life. Anyway, Bill, as well as Josh, who is sore over losing, both race back home to get the money for the figure, and we see them literally race each other in the pilot. Bill bullies his brother Tommy to get it, who in the pilot becomes a girl named Jane for some reason. We also see she hates her brother, stabbing a needle into a plush version of him. But when they return, they find out Joe, the owner of the store, doesn't accept checks nor credit cards, which causes them to fight over the figure and break its head off. Joe kicks the club out, and Bill leaves the store as he takes the head and Josh begs him for it, promising to help pay for the figure. So that was Welcome to Eltingville, and as I've explicitly implied, I really wish this pilot got picked up. Just about every aspect of it is great, and as a pilot, it manages to set up the show's premise and explain who our characters are. Anyway, as for how it compares to the comic, as I've said, its creative liberties help serve the narrative one way or another, without changing anything else. It's clear the creator was involved. But the thing that made it as great as it was is that it was written by someone who is a nerd himself. Evan has stated the series was inspired by his own experiences around fandom. Sure, much of the behavior exhibited is stereotypical, but it's all for satirical effect, which has helped the series age well in modern day. So with all of that praise, why is it that the pilot was never picked up? That's something we don't have a true answer to, with Evan saying that not even he was told why. As for its future, I think it's safe to say it probably isn't going to happen, having been over 20 years. But if the opportunity ever comes, then I'm not going to stay hopeless. However, Evan has stated what potential episodes we could have gotten for a full series, apart from more adaptations. these revolving around a Klingon versus Elf war and the club digging through a landfill to regain an item that was thrown out. But alas, all the attention the pilot has received from Adult Swim is from occasional reruns and being available on the Adult Swim Pilot's first edition DVD. It really was the end of the Eltingville Club.